He's in the house. What's up, Pre-Cal 12? We are on section 4.3a, and we're rocking and rolling. Here we go. Thanks, Jack. So what we were saying is we would then we subtract 2 pi to get 5 pi, subtract it again to get 3 pi, right? Did I do that right? 5 pi, 3 pi, and then one more time to get pi, right? So we would then go to cosine of pi on my unit circle, and we'd be finding the same thing, right? Did anyone have questions on that? We've already done this already. And the same thing here, we might just have to get common denominators, right? And instead of subtracting, I'd probably add. All right, y'all good with that?
When it says the value, do you want us to write 0 or just cosine of pi?
You can. I would write that because you can always get work shown in case you messed up on the second part. If you put, let's just say 1 and that was it, I can't give back partial credit.
Yeah.
Show me that work in case you messed up. I don't anticipate that, but just in case, so that when you put 0 there, I have something to support it. If you do that, I'm good to go. Okay. All right, real quick, take out your calculator real fast. If you want to take some notes, you can. This is really not going to be tough because we've kind of already discussed this stuff here. Did I show the picture of the goat the other day?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I told you the nativity that I got. So, pet goats. Here we go. GAC should get pet goats. That would be good.
Tailgates.
And tailgates, that's right.
That's what it is.
Cotangent of 4.7. Anybody have any thoughts on what cotangent of 4.7, how I would actually solve that?
Plug it in your calculator.
How? You're right. If I did it by calculator, how would I do that? Yeah, that's a great question. Inverse tangent is actually not the same. Inverse tangent would be finding an angle. In fact, any inverse, when you think of inverse, think find angle. Okay? We have not done that yet. So it's not the same as cotangent. But we understand that it's the reciprocal, right? So if I found cotangent of 4.7, the first question is 4.7 degrees or radians? Yeah, why is that? What did it say? It didn't say degrees, right? So since it didn't, we've got to make sure our calculator is in radians. Good. So real quick, just to check that, we're going to go to mode and make sure I put mine in radians already. But you want to make sure that that's there, because if not, it'll assume that it's degrees. So then we go to second quit, okay? And to do this, we're going to do 1 divided by tangent. It should make sense because it's just the reciprocal. So 1 divided by tangent of 4.7. We'll put that in, okay? And when we do, we should have gotten a decimal of like 0.0124, and that would be what our value would be there when we do 1 divided by the tangent that's there, okay? So I'm telling you, do not use tan inverse, okay, or cosine inverse. That's not the same as 1 divided by, okay? Y'all good with that? All right, let's keep it rolling. We're going to go fairly quickly here through this. Roll, this is the stuff that you were talking about, right? We're going to come back to that, okay? Cool, we're going to come back because I think today's stuff you'll find, I think it'll be fairly simple here, okay? Over here, does everyone get this? What is this linked to? All of these? Trig functions related to what? That's good. The unit circle. Good, Michael. It is related to the unit circle. And we remember that if I had a right triangle trigonometry, what would be the sine ratio?
Opposite over hypotenuse.
Good. So opposite over hypotenuse. What would be cosine? Adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent is?
Opposite over adjacent.
Yeah, y'all are rocking. And then all of these would end up being the reciprocals of what's over here, right? Is everyone good with that? So the difference is these are corresponding to the unit circle, where the other ones correspond to right triangle trigonometry, which we've already kind of discussed, okay? It's pretty much the basics of what we've already talked about when we talk about, y'all like the pictures?
Yeah.
It's on right now.
How you know the
exciting.
capacity, the attendance?
Yeah, it's 112,000. 112,000 people. Don't cuss in my class there, Roll. Don't cuss in my class. No, he's not. No, he's not. Okay, so as we look at the 6 trig ratios, here's the question, okay? If I gave this to you, a lot of this, again, I'm not, y'all know this stuff. I just want to make sure we at least hit it once. When I do this, what do I do in order to find the 6 trig ratios? Remember, a little different, related to what's in blue, not in not what's in yellow, right? We're talking about the opposite over hypotenuse stuff. So how would I attack this first? What would be the process of this?
You already have sine, but you need to find adjacent. So just do sine opposite over hypotenuse.
Ooh, I like that. So we can say that. Do we know what theta is? Do we know what theta is at all?
No. Like the degree.
Yeah, it's the degree. We don't at this point, right? We don't at this point. Roll, were you going to say something?
No, it's not the same thing.
Okay, gotcha. I just want to make sure we're good. So theta, we don't know. We could find out, but this time we don't care. We're just trying to find the ratios. So what we would say is sine of theta equals what? Noble was saying it there. 12 over 13. Good. But there's a problem. For instance, when we find cosine of theta, we don't know the adjacent side. So what do I do? How so?
But you can't because, yeah, just do the Pythagorean theorem.
Pythagorean theorem, right? Good old Pythagoras. My son's middle name, Pythagoras. So as we look at what the adjacent side would be, right, we're looking for what x would be. So what we're going to say is x squared. Sorry, let me get a different color there. Here we go. X squared. Run out of ink? There we are. X squared. You joke. It happens. It runs out of ink. You have to like. All right. X squared plus 12 squared equals 13 squared. Okay? Someone throw that down in your calculator real quick. And what do we get? 5. Excellent. Roll comes in the clutch and gives us 5. Okay? So roll, what would be the actual cosine of theta here? Nice. 5 over 13. I like it. What would be tangent? 12 over 5. Good. And that would be my ratios. What would be cotangent of theta? 5 over 12. What is secant, worst conference in America? What would that be?
13 over 5.
13 over 5. And then the cosecant, what would that be? 13 over 12. Do you get this? Easy, I think. I think it's easy. Again, just trying to make sure we get some reps out on that side, okay? Trying to think if there was anything else on that I wanted to hit. I think that's pretty much it. Let's go to the next one. Let's make sure we've got this one. Okay, up here, this is off your homework, okay? And by the way, I forgot to get that out there. Let me get these. This is 4.3a. Again, this will be due at the end of the week. I think I even put it on the weekend, okay? On the weekend there. So I'll kind of pass these out. But this is the first one on the top side. It says find the exact values of the 6 trigonometric functions of the angle theta for each of these, okay? So let's look at the top one first. What would I do in order to find or start that process? Good. Good roll. So what would we be solving or finding here? The hypotenuse, right? The C, right? The C. So what I'd like for you to do, just real quick, I want you to try to attack this one. We can come back to this one later. And then I wanted to see if you can actually find this angle real quick, okay? Just within those in your group, real fast. And try to get some of this homework stuff done real quick here. See if you can get this rolling. And I have this. We'll go work on that. So you got my help on that one? That's good. And make sure of something real fast. Let's see. After these two, I've got one more problem left for the day, and then we're good. We're going to move to something else. So I'm going to give you just a second. Bragging on this group the other day. Coach Kramer. Told him who was in my class and said, "How are they doing?"
I bet you he was surprised.
What's that?
I bet you he was surprised.
He was. He's like, man, how are they? I said, I don't know if it's a small class size. They're rocking.
SEC is worse than Pac-12.
Yeah.
And Big 12.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
FCC is the best conference.
Yes.
Big 10 might be the best, but SEC is not the worst.
How is the championship? That's two SEC teams. That's all
The
you
SEC
Maybe
has
Western.
the best team.
The
Georgia.
best 3 teams.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 this year.
Auburn's not there right now.
They're number
Right, yeah.
9. Vanderbilt is better than the
Claire,
best.
how are you doing on this stuff?
Yeah.
Stop.
Okay.
Everybody admit it.
If you need
Besides
to,
Ohio
as we
State,
open, I
that's
know you were
Florida State
feeling
or
it
SEC,
yesterday.
so.
Slow me down as well.
That's fair.
Okay, and then that one,
Florida
their
State is
homework where I was
trash.
on beach, I couldn't
Yeah.
figure out.
Last year they were.
That's fine. Put it on the left side,
Okay.
underneath second period, and then I'll update that because I know it's weird. In the future, I told everyone else just that you can put it on one document.
Yeah.
There's a couple ways you can do that. I just so I can just have one thing that I download and see. Otherwise, there's a lot of downloads on my Mac that I try to help with.
You want us to do the angle of elevation?
Yeah, if you could do the angle of elevation, that would be great. Did everyone get those 6 trig ratios there for this one? Y'all see that one here?
What are the questions?
For the smaller triangle.
You're doing this one up here. If you want to go ahead and do that one, that's fine. You'll do this one as well. But really, I wanted you just to do the first one up here, and then I'm going to use that to then do the second one in the angle of elevation over on that side. Cool? 'Cause we only got one more question on that I wanted to hit off the work. Y'all feel pretty good on this one? Okay. Oh, I just missed it there. So did you do that? Did you understand the difference between SOHCAHTOA and then the unit circle? Why? On that one? I would say that yesterday's stuff, I did do a podcast on it. If you have questions, let me know because that was a little bit heavy.
Okay,
yesterday,
I'll watch
so
the
that's
podcast and then if I need to come in, I'll text you.
perfect. Sounds great.
See, I don't. Do you have to? You can't do this in calculator.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, you can. How can I get theta by itself? Can't divide by sine. There's another way. How do I solve for the angle? I kind of said it just a little bit.
Multiply by 3,000.
Not quite. I haven't really said it. So,
I always forget.
no, you're good.
Like how.
So this is 1500, right?
Yes.
This is 3000. Is there anyone on the ski problem?
I know what you're trying to find.
It's on the back.
The angle of elevation from the base of the mountain.
That's what
Right? Y'all see that? So we have 1500 and 3000. How do I set this up as a trig ratio?
Sine equals 1500 over 2,000.
Well, you trying to find the angle.
Sine negative.
So be
Alright.
the negative.
Roll, go ahead. Roll, you were rocking, and then Michael said it followed up with you on that. But go ahead. You were telling me how to set it up. Ha! All right, there we are. There we are. So we have sine of theta equals 1500 over 3000. And what Roll was saying was he had the setup. Michael butted in rudely, all right, and threw it out there, and basically was saying, and this is the question, how do we get theta by itself? I need you to know the difference. Before we were just finding the ratios. Here, we're using the ratio to solve for what theta is. So how do I get theta by itself? Anytime I solve for an angle, I do what? Sine inverse. Okay, I can't divide by sine, but you just can't break that up. So you have to use the sine inverse on both sides. And when you do sine inverse of 1500 over 3000, I'm trying to get an angle, right, in degrees. So what mode do I need to be on my calculator? Degree mode, okay? So sine inverse of 1500 over 3000 gets me what? 30 degrees, good. So the angle of elevation is 30 degrees. We use the ratio to get to this, okay? Do y'all see the difference there? So sine inverse, is that the same as cosecant?
Yes.
No, yeah, that's exactly right. I want you to make sure you get that. I'm messing with you. It's not the same, right? If I hear, Coach Jay, cosecant's the same as sine inverse again, I will haunt each of you. Okay? I will come to your house and I will haunt you. Alright? I say that, it's important. Alright? It's important. And Jeffrey, I was messing with it. Okay? But remember, sine inverse is only to find the angle. Okay? How would I write that? If I said cosecant and I wanted to use sine, it would be the same as 1 over sine of theta. Cool? Do you see the difference? And I see why you would use that. I was okay. Cool. Questions on that? We're good? Okay, last one. And this is the last one I want to hit, and then we'll get into one thing we're going to do today. It says use trig values to figure out the other 5 trig values. So I have to set this up where x is the angle. How would I set that triangle up? Yeah, and so if I drew this triangle, right, where the angle would be x or theta or whatever it would be there, what would I know based upon the fact that tangent was 5 over 12?
Opposite is 5.
Yeah, so the opposite would be what?
5.
And the adjacent would be?
12. And I find this 13.
Good, yeah, because you know it's a 5, 12, 13. If for some reason it was a radical, keep it as that radical. Cool? Simplify the radical and then put it here. But we know if I did 12 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared, we get this as 13. Now I'm assuming, maybe this is a bad assumption, can I find my 6 trig ratios now? I can, by SOHCAHTOA and then flipping it and going from there. Cool? All right, questions on that? Y'all feel okay? All right, so that was it for today. Let me show you what we're going to do next, okay? There's 2 different people, okay? 2 different people today. One first person, if you are struggling with the previous section, you need a couple more reps, you need just kind of more guided practice, that would be for you, okay, to kind of get that help that's there. The second thing that I will allow you to do is I created a puzzle. This puzzle is comprised of about 20 questions that you and a partner or you and 2 partners can kind of engage on. If you can get this done either today and into tomorrow, or both and, by the time you finish it, you will have 4.3a exempted. I'll literally give you the credit for 4.3a homework, okay? You can do it, and it's an in-class thing, okay? In-class thing. So as we look at this, you'll notice that on here, this is a great review for the quiz. So on here, you'll notice it says find the complement of 8 pi over 17. When you find the answer, whatever the answer may be, you're going to end up putting this with the answer on one of these ones here. Does that make sense? And you'll connect those together. Then you'll get another problem and so on and so forth to where it should create a circle, like a domino circle type of thing. Cool? All right?
I like it.
So if you want to do that, just kind of something different, it will replace the homework that's there. I'll do this. I'll allow you to replace 4.3a or 4.3b, okay? Either one of those 2. You'll just have me choose it. I'll stamp on it, and that just tells me that you did the activity in class. Again, if you struggled on the previous stuff and you'd rather focus on that at this time, I'm going to allow that time to kind of have some extra time to focus on that. So I'll allow you to kind of choose that and then go from there. Cool?
I like it.
Cool. Feel free to spread around the room, whatever you want to do, and we'll rock and roll. Okay? If you want one, again, come up here, get one of those, and we'll go from there. Cool.
Okay.
Does anyone want to do this? Does anyone want to do the previous stuff? Previous stuff? Okay. Right on. Right on.
Sure.
Let's do it. If you want that, go right ahead. I'll allow you to choose on that. We'll
So,
to be.
So I just write the answers on a separate.
You don't even have to. You can just do it on your desk, and as you go, just kind of put them together. Does that make sense?
Okay.
If you don't finish today, I'm going to give you the first part of tomorrow or Thursday to do it. So take a picture of it. That way you can reset it. Okay? Clay?
Just show you. I have to back this so I can still do the 4
Paper.
stop.
Perfect. Have you done the signs? That one was due as well.
Okay.
So I can't give you credit on the other one, but that one I can, at least the front
Okay.
side. So what I would do is that would give you about 5 more points on that.
Okay.
I would tear that one off, put it on the left side, and I'll give you the credit for that one.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Would you mind looking on the right side for me on that, Jay? line. Okay, gotcha. I'm gonna put that down and do that. My apology if I've said that before. My apology on that. I'll update that though.
Yeah, so like the left side.
Thanks for touching base with me. I think I told you. Just make sure, and you did. Appreciate it. Perfect. And Roll, you said you needed some help, right, on that? And some of you maybe need some more help on that as well. So we can kind of get started on this and make sure we've got it. So what questions did y'all have on?
The ones like I did these, but I didn't like those.
Let's do may I do the bottom one there, just for rolling that way. It kind of helps with the second one. So this one down here is we want to first put the definition. Okay. So when we state this, we're going to put the definition of cosine of t is equal to cosine of negative t by definition, based on our functions, our cofunctions we talked about the other day. Okay. This should be a negative value here, negative t. So when I have a positive angle, the negative value of that would equal with cosine, right? Sine's a little different. Remember the negative? It's the same thing except there's a negative here, okay? So when I plug this in, cosine of t equals negative 3/4, we're going to plug that in and say negative 3/4 equals cosine of negative t, just like that, okay?
So the answer to A is that -4.
Correct. What is secant of that? Secant of negative t would be what? Negative 4/3, yeah. Negative 4/3. Now the reason why, and just so we're aware of this, I want to make sure, just to kind of touch base with you on the why behind it, because it's going to help us with the ones you struggled on. The ones we were talking about, I forget which of the two of you had the one struggle on these two. But it will help us with these, okay? When we draw this, the cosine of t is, let's say, a positive angle, right? If it is negative, cosine of negative t, this thing's going to go backwards, right? So if up here, this is negative 3/4, down here, this will also be negative 3/4 because all short teachers care, right? And we remember that whatever the value is here, it's going to be the same here. And vice versa, okay? So does that make sense? That's why. That's why we would plug this formula, and this formula is true because whatever in this case would be in quadrant 1 would be the same sign as if it was in quadrant 4.
Is that the same? It's the same apply for sign.
We have to get it to
Same, different with sign because we're sign the same sign at up here, all short, right? So if it was down here, if the t was up here and we reflected downward, if this, let's say, sine of t was 2/3, sine of negative t would be downward. This is where sine is negative, right? So they would not have the same signs. This would be negative 2/3. Okay? All right, you see that? That's why. But the way that you did it right down here was perfect. Use the formula. I just want to make sure you know why that's the case. Okay?
So sign, I can say sign of t is equal to negative
just plug in, so
Yes.
negative 4 times.
Cool. Hey, guys, I want to make sure we're doing math. Okay? I know we've got other things to study, but because we're doing stuff here, if we could make sure that we're doing something related with math, all right? So either the homework, or if you want to engage with one of these up here, that's fine too. Okay? Thanks, guys. So this right here, on the top right. Okay? Yeah, Jim.
You watch a video? Like one of the math videos?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So when we do sine of pi minus t, okay, where would that end up? That a part end up? Well, first thing we want to do is we want to start with pi, and then we subtract the t, right? Which is 180 subtracted by whatever t is, and we're going to assume that t is. I'm going to move this up just a hair, just so you can kind of see it there. We're going to assume t is in the first quadrant. Okay, so we're going to assume that that is t right there. Okay. Now, if I did pi minus t, where would that end up? Good, no, well, yeah, because this would be pi subtracted by t. This would be pi minus t up here. We don't know where it would be. It would be somewhere though in the second quadrant. Now, if I took t plus pi, I'm going to start with this and then rotate it 180 degrees to make it where? Third quadrant, yeah. Roll, does that make sense? No?
And that's how you want our answer to look. Is that
Yeah, I just
what
don't
the
know.
answer is supposed to be like?
Kind of, well, we use this to determine what are the same signs, right? S-I-G-N-S, like positive or negative. So if all short teachers care, is where we're at. And when we went to this was 4/5 here. The value of this was 4/5. What we would say is pi minus t would get us over here. It's going to be 4/5. The question is whether it's positive or negative. Does that make sense? So like if I add 180 degrees, is that positive or negative? Well, sign's positive in the first and the second, right? So because that's the case, this is going to be what? Over here. Positive, because that's where sign is positive, right? So we're going to say 4/5 is the answer here.
And that's what you're right next to A.
Yep, A would be 4/5, right? Because it's pi, 180 minus t would get me in the second,
Okay.
whereas t plus 180 would get me in the third.
And that's negative.
And that's negative because tangent's the only one positive.
And that's the answer you're looking for.
Negative 4/5, yep. That'd be it. Okay. Roll, did you get hung up on
You had
that?
me there for a while. Hold on.
Sounds a
How
little
did we
tricky.
get into the third quadrant? Just this one.
Yeah, good question. So I have t. Let's just say it's 30 degrees. We don't know that.
Right, so here's the pi minus 30 would be use 150. Now flip it into the third quadrant because
Because t plus pi. So I start with
Oh.
30, add pi, right? That's how I get the
so the negative would be the answer to B.
correct. Correct. Good. Good. Jack.
If we don't know what it is, what if it's already in the second quadrant?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. How do you know that
That
T-
t's in the first. Is
Yes.
that what you're saying?
Yeah,
It's a great question. I would just, I don't know what T is. I always use the first. It just makes it easier on that. I don't want to confuse you, but I'll just kind of give you an example. If this was sine of t equals negative 4/5, could that be in the first quadrant? No, because it's positive there, right? So sine would have to be in a different quadrant. But remember, you can make t whatever you want it to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm just using a visual aid to hopefully help you to see
But
where would it
If it was-
be there.
if it was negative 4/5, it'd have to be in third or fourth, right?
Correct. Correct. I haven't seen that, especially with the 2 on the right side. But if that was the case and it was negative, what I would do is I would make t somewhere in the third. Okay? And if I don't want to confuse anyone because I haven't seen it, but if I did the negative version of that, cosine of negative t, or if I did t plus pi, if I did t plus pi, that's going to add 180, and my result would be somewhere like that. Does that make sense? So I would do the same thing. I would just change the t to something where it would be negative, and that way I can kind of see it.
On this quiz, are we gonna get fill out
Unit circle.
circle?
So you're gonna have to fill out the unit circle first, if that makes sense. And what I probably would do, I'm still trying to think through that, because I don't want to double hit you. If that makes sense, because you'll need to use it. But I would say just know the unit circle, and that way, that'll be the one time you'll have to memorize it, right? The other times, I might have you do like one quadrant or something, but it won't be the whole thing. So, and then I'll give you one on a test for this quiz. Know the unit circle, and then be able to use that unit circle to solve for the other stuff. Does that make sense? Cool. I think for this time, because it's a quiz, we'll do it that way. All right. Cool. And Claire, you're probably like, what the heck? A little bit. I would really look at the podcast and really look at kind of the behind, kind of goes through all of the behind the scenes there. Okay. Because it can be tricky on that. But it all's based on definitions that we had and solved, where the definitions were based on this here. Okay? Where in a nutshell, these are even right here, and in the bottom are odd. The only difference between the two is you see this negative here? Notice there's not a negative for cosine. And so we use those definitions to simplify and solve. And this is probably the first new thing that we went through on that. So it's kind of a little tough. Good. You're doing faster than I do. I have to really think. I have to draw it out for me.
Okay.
But yeah, some of you are good. You can see it there.
What does this help with
Say again.
in reality? What does this help with?
This is more theoretical. So this is a if you go to college, there's some classes where they just literally go behind the scenes on and say, this is why you're doing it. It's not necessarily anything that you'll apply other than just knowing how it works and operates, the why behind it. Kind of similar to what I told you earlier, where this will be more on the college placement exam and trying to prepare you for that.
So if you could change all of like academia,
Yeah.
would you teach stuff like this?
When I teach, I would put a higher emphasis on things like statistics.
Yeah, like so, like I don't think we should have a whole entire class devoted to theoretical stuff.
Wouldn't it make more sense to do math that will actually work? Like,
Yeah.
It matters if you go into a field that uses theoretical math.
Bingo. So that, and I would also say that there's going to be stuff this year you're going to see. We're going to apply. We're going to go out. In fact, next week we'll go out and use some of this stuff, like out there and like apply it. There's some stuff we'll talk about money a lot later on in some of the other units. Some of the units are more theoretical, like they're more behind the scenes, like why does this happen? Why does this exist? I think it's good to know some of those things and to take classes like that because it really challenges you and not just saying, oh, compute this, but actually it uses problem solving and there's different things like that. I would, if it was me, put a higher emphasis on statistics because like that would be, it's more application, it's more, absolutely. Would I get rid of all this? No, I wouldn't do that because there's a lot of people that use this stuff and they change the world. I mean, NASA engineers, things of that nature, going much deeper than even this. So, but yeah, I would, if it was my druthers, I would adjust it a little bit though. But I will promise this: when we hit something that's impactful, we'll talk about it and we'll apply it, and you'll hear me say that there. But good questions, really good questions. Absolutely. So T would be up here. Negative T would be downward, right? Right. Negative 3/8 would be right. And then the B part's the reason why is you have the first quadrant is positive, whereas the fourth. For that one, here's what I would say on that one. Right here, this is the formula is here, right? Sine of t equals, or negative sine of t equals sine of negative t. What was sine of negative t again? 3/8, right? And if I'm solving for sine of t, what do I get rid of? Negative, to make it negative 3/8 is equal to sine of t. You can use the formula in an easier way. The y behind it, I want you to know so that you kind of understand how it corresponds with what we have talked about. But you just cancel out and go.
Yeah.
The ones that are tougher are the ones with pi. You can't just do it that easy. I always like to draw those out,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Yeah. Because this is the ratio of adjacent over hypotenuse, you can put theta wherever you want. I always put it like you do. And the adjacent would be the one that's connected to it, right? And then the hypotenuse would be the one across from 90. How you draw the triangle is completely up to you, as long as the adjacent is 5 and the hypotenuse is 7.
Was on Thursday.
You set that up. Great, yeah. The only thing I would say is that I think you ended up getting 16, no, 26 26 for this? That's square root of 26. Cool. That way you can just approach it that way. Hey, how are we doing on this stuff, y'all? Are we progressing okay?
We're
Okay.
progressing.
Well, what's hard?
Like,
That stuff, the stuff we were talking about here.
yes.
It is. It
It's
is.
like trying to find inspiration to do it. You don't want to do it.
I'll tell you this, and again, I told you toughest, and I would say it's not the most exciting thing. It's not like I get to go. I get that. Okay, I just want, but we gotta hit it. We gotta hit it still. Okay, I recognize that. It's not like I'm in my tower thinking, oh, the students will love this. This is gonna be the best lesson ever. Unicorns and rainbows. I know this is heavy.
Alright,
Okay.
can you start like step by step how to solve these problems like one? Like two.
Yeah, can
Give me one.
yeah, do we have a cosine negative t on cosine t equals in the right in the middle bottom?
Negative 3/4. If I did these two, the right side is different. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. If I did this one, what's the definition? You'll have those definitions, by the way. You will have those definitions.
Cosine t is equal to cosine negative t.
Yes, equals cosine of negative t, right?
Yes.
All right, so
So-
what do we know?
A equals negative 3/4. Like A, the answer is negative 3/4.
Yes, because I plug in negative 3/4 in for cosine t, right? You see how I
And they-
substitute that
They
in?
equal each other.
And that equals cosine of negative t. And there's my answer.
And for b, you can flip it because
Bingo. You say, Coach, why? That's easy. Why did we have to go through all the drawing stuff? I need you to know why, okay? I need you to know why. I need you to connect the dots between all short teachers care. How the positive, why is that? Why is the fact that if this is negative, that this also would be negative if I take the t downward, right? It's because of the fact that the first and fourth quadrant, cosines are positive in both of those.
So B is negative 4/3.
Or they're the same sign. Again,
B is negative 4/3.
negative 4/3, yeah.
the ones on the left are confusing. The ones on the right are. Let me rephrase that. Cosine on the right is hard.
Okay, where's t?
T is in the first and fourth.
Let's just do first, okay? Is that cool?
Uh-huh.
All right, where's pi minus t?
Should be somewhere in the second.
Good. Where's the b part? T plus pi. Third. Okay. So this is a. This is b. Cool. Where is cosine? Where's cosine positive?
It's negative in both of those quadrants.
It's negative here and here. Got me?
Negative four.
So what would that be? That'd be negative 4/5.
That's
Cool.